Thanks for tuning in to the Marvel Movie Minute.
Want to skip those pesky ads and get early access?
Become a member at truestory.fm/join and discover all the other great perks that come with it.
Joyous day. Welcome back to the Marvel Movie Minute, my favorite podcast. And this is my favorite episode of it, a weekly podcast in which we assemble to explore the films of the Marvel Cinematic Universe 5 minutes at a time. In this, our 8th season, we are looking, but now we must begin to sadly look back at Thor: The Dark World. I'm Matthew Fox.
And I'm Pete Wright.
And today we're talking about minutes 101 through 105, my favorite minutes of the whole movie, which begins with a touching father-son moment that is built on a throne of lies and ends with Benicio Del Toro making everyone uncomfortable. Pete, what do you think is the thing that happens in these minutes that makes me just like, it was like spring is in the air, it's Christmas, there's pizza in the oven. I am so excited to talk about these minutes. Why do you think that is?
Is it when Thor turns his back and walks away?
It's actually something that happens right after that.
What's that?
It's that it fades to black and the movie never, ever comes back. It's done. It's over. It's gone. It's like, I have never run a marathon.
Yeah.
But I have friends who have, and one of them told me that like they have never really understood like the sense of accomplishment and relief. There's something that I could never really understand that came when they like came over the last hill or whatever it was and saw the finish line and were like, oh my God, it's over. We did it.
Yeah.
I forgot. I thought we had like 10 more minutes of this movie to go through, maybe even 13 or so. But no, we did it.
Yeah. It ends hard and fast. Like once it's decided it's done, it's over.
It brought a tear to my eye, Pete.
I haven't seen a smile on your face this big in months. Yeah.
It's over.
Okay. So let's dig into what actually happens, because this resolves a couple of points that we've been perseverating on over the last several weeks. And one of them is we get the end of the conversation that started last week between Odin, in quotes, and Thor. And now we know what happens and what happened to Loki. The conversation is interestingly sincere on Thor's part. And I think this is fascinating. When you look at what the conversation itself is, essentially Thor telling Odin that ruling is not the path that he wants, that Odin appears to give him a really surprisingly soft, benevolent blessing. Mm-hmm. And but the whole time, and this is one of the things I think was interesting about this sequence, is that Hiddleston and the filmmakers wanted to make this what they called a reading twice experience, right? That on rewatch, you can watch the subtle shifts in Hopkins' voice and timing in Odin's speech to hint that it's actually Loki. So they work together. And if you watch it, you see Odin's posture is different. It's not really that his upright regal posture. It's kind of leans into classic Loki on the throne comic art, where he's just kind of slouched to the side. And that starts with Hopkins' performance of it. I think that's interesting in this bottom half of this conversation. And he's offering Thor, knowing now that it's Loki, he's offering Thor a bit of gentleness in this goodbye that is sincere beyond the measure that I would expect him to have, especially given the turn moments later when they reveal it's Loki. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, you've heard that I don't like this scene overall in that in the way it's done, and that I think we deserved a real scene between Odin and Thor at some point. But you've heard all my thoughts on that from last week. This is my day of Jubilee. We're not going to go into that.
Yes.
I think that they do a very good job here. And it reminds you that Loki is truly a brilliant trickster. Because yes, there are those little things that you can pick up on. But he gives Thor probably, I think, the best possible answer to keep Thor away. Because he does, as you said, he doesn't just say, Thor, you're making a right choice and you're my son and I'm proud of you and you're right, we don't need you. Because I think that would make Thor suspicious. Instead, he holds to his honor and his belief of saying, like, I cannot endorse you. I cannot say that I am proud of you. But basically then very clearly says, I'm not saying I'm proud of you, but I'm saying I'm proud of you.
Yeah. And also because I can't say I'm proud of you because I'm not dad, right? I'm giving you some words that can sound dad adjacent, and you're going to have to hear them with your ears.
Right. Especially because, and I thought this was very interesting, he says, I am proud of my son.
Yeah.
Which are the words that he always wanted his dad to hear as Loki.
Right.
And but even more so, and again, this is a subtlety. I kind of wonder if there's a different director for these 5 minutes, honestly, because it's so different in tone. At one point, Thor mentions that, don't forget, Loki fell in battle honorably, and I want to do like him. And there is no reaction from Anthony Hopkins playing Loki's version of Odin.
Right. And
enough so that, again, because it's been a little while since I had watched the ending of this movie, and I tend to block it out because avoid the pain. I couldn't remember if this, we talked last week and you'd said, like, this is definitely Odin, but it's definitely Loki, and I just hadn't remembered exactly. And that even gave me a pause for a minute. Like, wait, maybe this isn't Loki quite yet. Or maybe this is evidence I can use to Pete that this isn't Loki quite yet. Yeah. But no, it turns out it was. And I think it's like, it would have maybe been more satisfying in a way to give a more over-the-top Loki, but that wouldn't have been Loki. And it would have made Thor suspicious. And the way he does it, I think, just makes his part of this scene really brilliant. I continue to think Thor is an idiot, particularly when he says, I'm not doing this for Jane, because then you wonder, so is it because you love hot dogs so much? Like that coffee thing? What's going on?
Maybe it's all about the matcha latte.
Latte's pretty good. But yeah, I thought that those directorial choices are brilliant and really help to set up a lot of where Loki goes in the future.
I think it's actually, I mean, I don't fall quite as hard on Thor's an idiot in this scene, because Thor matches Loki Odin's sincerity, and he's doing it authentically, right? He's really talking about how he feels about his brother. And I hadn't caught that before, that he's really talking to Loki when he's talking to Odin. He doesn't know it, but what he's setting up is their relationship in Ragnarok to come, right? He's setting up the rebuilding of their relationship. So by the time we get to Infinity War Endgame and things get very real between them, we actually get to feel real loss. And that kind of starts here. In when they're rebuilding from what was lost from the last movie and the Avengers. So I think this is a subtlety in the last 2.5 minutes of the movie proper that is maybe under-regarded on both their parts.
So I have a different thing let's say about Thor in a second, but Richard, to your point, I think I mostly agree. And here maybe I'm maybe being too meta. But if you asked me, and I think this is a topic that gets discussed a lot, particularly in Star Wars fandom, and then also on my Superhero Ethics podcast, the question of if a person does a lifetime of terrible things, but then makes a noble sacrifice and dies as part of that noble sacrifice, are they redeemed? And, because that's what Darth Vader, Anakin Skywalker does. That's what Kylo Ren does. That's what a lot of other people do. And I think more recently, there's been a real sense of pushback of like, wait, it's good they do that, but that's not what redemption is. Redemption is the long process of accountability. It's much more like what Winter Soldier does in Falcon and Winter Soldier, or what Zuko does in Avatar: The Last Airbender. And so the extent to which, to me, for someone to say, oh, Loki proved like this was his true colors, that's kind of a dumb statement. But it's exactly what Thor would think, because it's part of the very heroic noble kind of ethos that Thor has been born and raised in his whole life, where he will now think that Loki has done this one brave thing, and therefore it wipes out everything else Loki has done.
Yeah, I agree with that. It fits Thor, even if it doesn't fit our ideology of what redemption looks like.
Yes.
And that's okay to hold those two things in contrast. But also because the cinematic universe needs things to be tidier than actual redemption.
For me, though, the Thor is an idiot part is about, because what he says here is that his desire to not want the throne is not about Jane, and that he wouldn't want it even if they offered him the chance to have Jane rule by his side.
And I think, I mean, we do you disagree? Thor would be a terrible king. He should not be king.
That was my question. Why doesn't Thor want to be king? I have no idea at the end of this movie. I have not in any way been told, here's why Thor decided not to be king. It feels completely out of left field, and it feels dumb, because I think he'd be a fine king. After all,
I don't think it feels dumb. I think it's everything he has done has been. I mean, Thor is being presented as man of action. Thor is being presented as man on the battlefield, and he doesn't. He's dirty with solving the problems of the Nine Realms, and the fact that he doesn't want the throne is both Watsonian and Doyleist response to a need, which is I don't want the throne because I'm not ready to hang up what I do best, like Odin did, right? He hung up what he did best, we'll see later, but he hung that up and became ruler. Thor is not that guy. Maybe not ever, but certainly not now. The fact that he says Jane doesn't enter into it, I think is a statement of authenticity. It says, whether you tell me I can't ever see Jane again or not, I'm still turning you down. There's nothing you could say that would make me want this throne. And maybe especially after what we've been through. So it just fits. It fits a model of maybe a template model of paternal succession, right? Particularly paternal and masculine succession that I think we have been told through generations of story that there is this template of the son recusing his responsibility to the father.
I mean, I think that's a great movie that you just explained, and I would have loved to watch that movie. I didn't watch. There's nothing in the last 2 hours I saw that for me in any way connects to anything you just said.
Not even the laser sword practice fight when they're on the balcony up above and talking about what's to come. It didn't at any point feel like subtextually even that Thor was mulling over a harder conversation with Dad.
You started that sentence with the laser sword practice fight, and you're asking me
that was my mistake. No, that was I heard it the moment I said it. I said I've just lost Matthew.
I don't know. And maybe that's the thing is it's like it was so hard to pay attention that it was. But of course I was. I've been watching this 5 minutes at a time.
Yeah.
No, I just don't. I didn't, and I feel like I would have liked to hear him say that. And I think it also goes back to, for me, there is this huge hanging thing in the room, which is that Odin has made some of the worst decisions he ever made as king that caused Thor to go traitor. And I just need one moment. I need to know how that experience, I think there is a story in which that experience absolutely leads him to the decision he makes.
Right.
But I don't, because either that can be, Father, you made the right decision, but as you saw, I would never support your decision, which is wrong, but I could understand him. Or he's saying, Father, you made the wrong decision, and I don't want to be king because I never want to have to make that horrible choice. But there's none of that.
Yeah, we don't get any of that. And that's what gets us back to this conversation about whether it feels like some important things were cut here at the end, right? It is a rush to the end. And the truth is, something that we absolutely agree on is not having real reconciliation between father and son is a big miss in this movie. And I don't understand it. As sincere as Thor gets to be, I I need him to hear Odin be that sincere for real, and Odin is gone. So we'll see when we pick up in Ragnarok, what comes of this conversation right here.
Right. You know what's a moment that I think could have given us what we wanted? If while they're traveling there, Thor and Loki had had a conversation about their father's decision. And something where Loki was the one to say, look, father was in this difficult situation. And not really defend him necessarily, but at least give Thor some, like, I could have seen something where Loki is able to give Thor some of that insight in a way that helps Thor understand. It adds a little bit to Loki's redemption, at least in Thor's mind, which obviously isn't true, but Loki's the prince of, dirty tricks and all that, so it makes sense. But also it would help. Thor needs someone to kind of help him understand what is it that Odin is doing and how is what Odin doing either a good or a bad illustration of being a ruler, whichever one you come down on. I think it's a bad one, but you can see either way. But like, I guess because to me, part of why I was so surprised is everything up to this movie had led me to think, of course he's leaving the throne for Jane. Because that was the whole point. Like, he brought Jane back. She had this problem. And Odin wanted to banish her. And Odin didn't want to help her. And that's why everything he's done, his treason, his rejection of Odin, all of that was about Jane on some level. And also him watching his father's mother. He's watching not only his mother die, but his father's wife die and how that affects his father. Right. And so to me, everything about this is leading up to him saying, if being king means I cannot be with Jane, then, and I get to now quote this for the second time, she is going to be my Mrs. Simpson. And I am going to, not go after it like King Edward.
So, and I can absolutely see that point, because it does give Thor's speech a sense of insincerity, because Thor gets his cake and eats it too, right? He gets to say, I don't want to be, whatever you say about Jane, I don't want to be king. But also at the end of this conversation, I get to go hang out with Jane. And he also doesn't have to deal with the reckoning of his internal struggle of losing his mother, how that could potentially lead to losing Jane if he takes the throne and brings her with him, right?
Right.
Say she relocates to, like, he doesn't want to mirror all of the steps that he now sees ultimately led to his own mother's death, right? Like, that makes sense.
And again, this might sound odd because I'm suggesting adding a few minutes to this movie, but I think, again, you could have handled that still pretty easily with something where Odin has a conversation with Thor when he comes back, and Odin says, you were right, I was wrong, and I know you're hesitant to become king, but I'm stepping down. And because the other thing is, we don't know, why does Odin no longer want to be king? Is that because he recognizes how much he screwed up or not? Obviously it's not, because it's Loki, but again, going just from the Thor's viewpoint. If we have Loki, Odin takes some accountability for the mistakes he made, say he wants to hand the throne off, also just to go grieve the loss of his wife and all this kind of stuff. Perfectly legitimate. And he says, Thor, I realize, especially with the death of Frigga, I can't ask you to rule without Jane by your side, so I will let you, of course, you can have that. And Thor, who is all ready to say, I don't want to be king, has to pause and think, maybe and then that's the moment where Thor realizes, no, it's not just about Jane. It's about, I don't just want to save Asgard, I want to help all of these realms. I want to be the man on the battlefield, not the man making the terrible king decision. And you could have had those scenes 2 minutes apart, and maybe even one is with Odin and one is with Odin Loki. You could have done it either way. But I think just that little bit of separation of acknowledge that, yes, his concern has been about Jane for most of this, but that now he's starting to see, actually, no, even if I could have Jane here as my queen, which, by the way, she might not want to do. She probably just wants to stay and study physics. That I think would help to address a lot of this as well.
Yeah, it's totally fair. But that does lead us to the end of their relationship in that final shot, of Loki on the throne is, it's a good one. It's a good one for Hiddleston. It's a good throwback to King Loki, and an homage to original artwork and original runs. And then we go to the first round of credits. This is the artistic credits, as created by Claus Studio. Claus is the moniker for the one-man creative studio of illustrator, designer, director, motion designer Justin C. Harder. And Justin has done a ton of work for some of the very biggest brands. And it is good work. I really like the role of these credits. I like the artwork that he's created here. I like the way it wipes in. I like the brush strokes. I think it's really quite beautiful.
I'm not an aesthetic person, but I do like I think credits are important, and I think it's important to recognize these people. And I do like especially when we're under so much makeup, and a lot of times it's not easy to recognize people. I like this way of sort of showing the portrait of the character with the name instead of just the scrolling of the name. Because I've been a little bit conditioned to this now, I now also know that means that there's going to be an end to this, and then some kind of scene, and then more credits. And so I'm often a little bit antsy. I'll confess also, I'm getting to the age where when I see these things in movie theaters, which I'm doing less and less, that's a whole other podcast, but couch watching supremacy, uber Alice. I just hate movie theaters. I think they're terrible. No one should have to go to them anymore. Make a constitutional amendment. You can if you want to, if you're an old fogey. But the point is, I'm an old fogey, and so often those are the times where I'm like, cool, I've got 90 seconds to run to the bathroom because I'm almost 50 years old, and this is a long movie, and I just drank a lot of soda. So I don't get to see them very often. But yeah, I think this is a cool style.
It is a cool style. I feel like our season of Marvel Movie Minute, I have no strong need to go name by name through the credits, as we have done in years past, as I am sure other hosts will do in years future. Mostly, I just want to get to that logo and the credits, the post-credits scene, the first post-credits scene. And that's where we go here. Now, what is important to note about this post-credits scene? It brings us not only to a very new location and style, but to a very new, I'll say it, director. Alan Taylor is out. James Gunn is in. This is a preview of the aesthetic, I think, of the caricature of James Gunn's choices in Guardians of the Galaxy yet to come. We are meeting Tanelier Tivan, the Collector, played by Benicio Del Toro. The Warriors 2 of the Warriors are taking the now Infinity Stone to the Collector for safekeeping. How does this hit you? I imagine a glass of cool water in the desert.
Yeah, this was fun. I think I didn't know much about the Collector, so I think the first time I saw this movie, this was one of those, I should go look that up. This seems like a fun thing to kind of learn more about. We get a little bit of Infinity Stone lore, which is kind of cool, realizing that it's a bad idea to keep two of the stones in the same place. Just kind of bringing everyone back. What they're doing is they're bringing the ether, so the reality stone, they're bringing that to the Collector because, as they say, as we hear in this scene, you're not supposed to keep Infinity Stones close to each other. So just having it and the Tesseract on the same planet would apparently be a bad thing. So I thought that was kind of cool. The minute we saw does not have my favorite reveal of the entire movie, so I will talk about that in the next 5 minutes. So we're not quite done. We got some more good things to come. I'm always hesitant to talk about these things, but it was so in your face that it's hard not that I'm just going to bite the bullet and mention it. The pink woman who is sort of holding her hands in a very kind of like, I'm almost a robot, but I'm a human person assisting the Collector, is a very interesting character design. And while I am a healthy person with a healthy set of appetites and don't mind seeing this kind of thing. Her nipple piercings or whatever they were is so prevalent through her outfit in such a like in your face camera focus on kind of way that it made me, along with Benicio Del Toro's like, hello, I am hitting on everybody everywhere. It just made the whole thing feel like, what is he doing with all of these things in his collection? That was not the accent he gives. It's obviously a different accent, but it still felt just like, go to Epstein Island, go directly to Epstein Island. That's where these two belong. Like, and she looked really good in the outfit. It just was like such an interesting choice that I was like, what is happening here?
That is hysterical. I have to admit, I did not notice that.
Well, cut this
now
out
I'm
then.
thinking, what's wrong with me?
No, because now I sound much worse if I noticed that much and no one else did.
I'm sorry to do that to you. Well, all that aside, she is helping the Collector. And what do we know about the Collector? The Collector first appeared in the Avengers 28. That's back in 1966. Yes, he's a Stan Lee and Don Heck original. He is a member of the Elders of the Universe, each representing the last survivor of a primordial civilization. And he is a cosmic hoarder. He is obsessed with cataloging the universe. He also has, in the comics, apparently he has a bent toward gathering important things. It's kind of a Noah vibe, right? He wants to gather important beings to preserve life. But as we see even in this teaser, preserving life at what cost, right? We see clips of alien species who are in these glass jars, essentially, and it doesn't look like they're preserved well. They don't have a great life, but he is there. His collection has, over the years, included Avengers, X-Men, cosmic entities, and even entire planets. So that's the Collector. It's a weird thing, but I think it's an interesting way to introduce us to the Guardians of the Galaxy, which is a weird thing.
And I'll also say a lot of these teasers, I think it's hard to look at now many years later, because I think somewhat understandably, Marvel was in sort of a period of throwing a lot of things at the wall. And I think the rate of teasers that got turned into real things is remarkably high. And so overall good, but there are a couple of things, like we got introduced to Booster Gold at the end of one of these movies and have never seen him again.
Right.
And for me, the Collector is definitely seeing it as a little bittersweet, because both I think the character design here is really interesting, and also I just love Benicio Del Toro, even if, as I said, he's giving this particular reading. And it's not just the way he talks, the way he looks at Volstagg and Lady Sif. At least he's kind of, indiscriminate with his affections. But he's set up as such this great character. And then in Guardians of the Galaxy, forgive me, spoilers for a movie that's, 15 years old or whatever it is, we're basically just told that the main antagonist of that, who's not some super elderly god figure, he's someone who can't even hold a reality stone, was able to basically just wipe this guy out and steal the stone pretty quickly. Oh wait, no, is that not? No, it's not. That's not him. No, that's Thanos who does that.
That's Thanos.
So that's maybe a little bit of a higher thing, but still, like, we get so little. We don't see that. It happens entirely off screen. So yeah, to me, there's just a little bittersweet there of this seemed like a really cool character that, granted, and maybe if you read the comic books, then you just get to like see that flag and you're happy it's there, and that's good enough. And I have no complaint about that. For me, it sort of opened this door that I wish we'd gone through at some point.
Okay. Now, the other thing that we have talked about at great length is about the Marvel brand guide coming into focus. And I think this segment is interesting because it is, as you already mentioned, it's the first time that we have these explicitly mentioned as a set, the Tesseract as the space stone and the ether as the reality stone, that they can't be in the same place. It is the first time that we get a sense that the MCU has begun openly structuring phase 3 around a quest, right? It's also, I don't know how unique it is. I don't have a spreadsheet in front of me, but this is not a gag. right? This sequence is not a joke.
Right.
And sometimes these end sequences are gags. This is also not a teaser for the next Thor film, right? It's a handoff to a completely different universe. That has happened a couple of times in the MCU. I mean, we have the Eternals handoff to Blade. Who knows what's going to happen there? And to
I'd forgotten
Black
about that.
Knight. Yep. So some of those things are do happen, but this is one that I feel like is pivotal. I think it's so interesting that it's at the end of a movie that largely disregards how pivotal it is.
Mm-hmm.
Does it resolve anything for you? Any of the complaints that we shared about the role of the Aether that started the movie with where they land on the Aether here in this post-credit sequence? Does it feel like a gentle and intentional shift, or perhaps that James Gunn said, enough already? Let's go ahead and lock this down.
No, it's the exact opposite. It's, oh, people do know how to make movies. This hasn't just been a fever dream of 90 minutes of me thinking that actually I was wrong and dialogue doesn't really exist. Like I said, I think because it never, like, you're right, it is a pivot point, and so it opens up things, and Guardians of the Galaxy was great, and expanding to the wider universe is great, and the Infinity Stones becomes the Infinity Saga, which is great. Like, I think that's Marvel at its heyday, the MCU at its heyday, but it doesn't make anything about the slop we just watched any better. Quite the opposite, because it's like, oh, yeah, why weren't you paying a good director? Why, if you had a writer who could actually write something interesting, why this Taylor idiot?
Well, easy now. Okay, now this is this might be an interesting data point to your very case. Apparently, Taylor himself was famously unhappy with all the additional scenes that were shot at the end of this movie. And I didn't mention the Thor, Odin, Loki thing. We talked about it several weeks ago, but that was shot very late. That was a thing deep in post-production. They came back and shot that sequence. This also apparently is in the catalog of things that Alan Taylor was famously unhappy about. He didn't like the tonal patchwork. He didn't like the weird shift in locale. That tension, to me, it just reads so clearly that might be why we end up with this weird shift at the end that makes us feel relieved that the movie proper is over and excited about what's to come here.
Yeah, I mean, that all might be true. And it might be that I'm unfairly blaming the wrong person. And I would certainly hold to the idea that whoever is to blame, I think with the MCU, they tried something new. And I want movies to try new things instead of just giving us the same old crap all the time. And so as much as I'm having fun criticizing it, because that's what we're doing, and I kind of slipped into that persona somewhat, like, I'm not unhappy this movie was made at all, because I'm glad they took a chance. And I think they tried to figure out, how do you find the balance of telling an individual, unique story that also is setting up these signposts for where we're going next. And I think that there have been some very good versions of that, some things that I think did that incredibly well. I think Guardians of the Galaxy is one of the absolute stars of that. I think Age of Ultron is one of the not as good versions of it. And I think this is far and away the worst. I think there's enough that's truly bad that has nothing to do with that I'm not going to let Taylor off the hook. But yeah, I think that does definitely affect those things. Yeah. And figuring out who's exactly to blame, I think there's enough blame to go
I'm actually
around.
on Team Matthew here, right? I think it just mostly speaks to that Taylor is unhappy with the end of this movie, and this post-credit scene speaks to exactly what we didn't like about most of the rest of the movie, right? It's a guy who didn't understand what we do like. And that's the twist.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
I mean, I don't know. Yeah. But if he wants to stand by, no, my red tornado of pixels, that's true movie making. But Thor and Loki and Odin talking to each other, that's boring. then just vote him off the island.
Right. So
that's the Survivor Island, not Epstein Island, to be clear.
Survivor.
Everyone on Epstein Island goes to jail, but that's another story.
Well, we do break kind of in the middle toward the end of this. The Aether is now firmly ensconced in its little lantern of protection, and they hand it off, and then our 5 minutes ends. And we are forced to reckon with another week of movie making.
And just to be clear, because I don't want people to think that therefore I'm like Taylor bad, Gunn good. What in these 5? So we have been told that this ether alters reality on the most fundamental level, and it can shift dimensions and open things and cause things to move. What is it about that lantern that makes us have any idea that it's going to be, kept?
Science fiction hand wavy faith. I don't know. It's because everybody looks at it real serious. Like,
yeah.
Like, what is it about the Tesseract being in a briefcase that, normally handles hard drives?
The Tesseract isn't trying to, warp reality.
Rewrite the fabric of reality. Yeah, that's fair.
I'm just saying, like, if it's going to be hand wavy, then I want to see you actually wave your hand, have a line of the woman saying, oh no, we can't have that. That's going to suck us all into another dimension. And then Benicio Del Toro coming and going, no, don't worry. I see the lantern they put it in. It's the secret lantern of Alderaan.
They literally hung a lantern on it. That's what they did here.
Yeah. Just tell me about, no, it's not fine. Tell me about the lantern. Tell me about the lantern.
We're in the post-credit scene, and you're still adding minutes to this movie.
I'm adding 10 seconds of one of the best actors of our generation getting to act. And
that is
letting that.
I'll give you. Benicio Del Toro is getting short shrift every time he says yes to a Marvel project. He is not in these movies enough. He should have gotten a different character.
Okay, you blew past that point of mine, so I'm glad at least we're in agreement on that.
Okay. Yeah, firmly.
There we go.
Firmly.
Okay.
All right. We'll see how this ends up next week. And thanks for hanging in with us, everybody.
One of my favorite Marvel characters of all time is about to be shown. Tune in next time.
Okay. Very excited.
No hints. I'll just say, quack, quack.
The audio commentary. It's a dying art form, but here at One Track Mind, I, your wonky yet affable host Ryan Luis Rodriguez, analyze film through the prism of these embryonic forms of podcasting, one audio commentary at a time. Masterpieces, crapster pieces, live action, animation, cult classics, films literally no one has ever heard of. No track is too small, and no track is too big. Join me and my guests from the entertainment world as we keep these features alive every other Tuesday. Hey, who else is going to discuss Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey one week and Citizen Kane the next? Us, that's who. Sure, you have to put up with my voice, but there's a certain give and take in this industry. That's One Track Mind, part of the Someone's Favorite Productions family and available wherever you get your podcasts.